how did you, again, not allow the emotion, or if you were feeling emotional in that moment, allow you to push past that to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. There was, so I'm a real fast runner. I was one of the top runners in my class. So that was never a challenge for me. And I was pretty strong with my body weight. I was pretty strong. Swimming was a challenge to me, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I was pretty good on the O course. I wouldn't say I was in the top 10 of the class, but I was definitely in the top 25%. And one day on the O course in first phase, I just had a horrible day. I messed up on an obstacle. And then, oftentimes we get inside our head, and I was behind on time. And then it's like I messed up on another one. And by the time I got to, it's like the rope swing obstacle. You have to run and grab the rope on a log and launch yourself up, and you land on another log that's about, 5 feet off the ground. And you kind of got to balance on that log and let go of the rope and move on with the rest of the obstacle. So I was already behind time. I'm all in my head. And I hit that rope and I missed it. And I tried again and again and again and again. And it must have taken me 15 times. So by the time I finished the obstacle course, I was dead last. And back then, obviously, now we're not allowed to do this because, oh my God, we're hazing and hurting people's feelings. But I'd wear a pink t-shirt that said Miss O course for having the slowest time on the O course. And, I don't know, I accepted it. I just accepted it. I didn't really beat myself up too much about it. I was like, hey man, you're good on the O course. You had a bad day. Yes, you got hazed and you got extra attention, but tomorrow's a new day. We start again. Swimming was, I was not the best swimmer. I was a very strong swimmer and very comfortable in the water, but I'd never done time swimming. I never swam in school or anything like that. And a mistake I made preparing for SEAL training is they said, hey, when you do the swim test, it's side stroke or breaststroke. So I never swam. I never swam freestyle. I never did a lot of conditioning swims, I should say. They were all long-term. Well, in SEAL training, you'll do all kinds of different swims, including short distance, crawl, front crawl, or freestyle. So those were some mistakes that I made and learned along the way, but still not that good a swimmer. I broke my arm in second phase. I rolled back into this. I rolled out of class 200 and rolled into 202. And they only gave me 3 weeks from the time I got my cast off until the time I classed up again. So I was weak. My upper body was weak, and I was failing. I failed like multiple swims. And they were like, if you don't pass these swims, we're going to kick you out. So thankfully they paired me with a great guy who was a fast swimmer who basically just screamed at me the entire swim. And I painfully made it. So everyone has their challenge. And I don't want to say everybody. There are some guys who are just genetic freaks. I mean, they're amazing at everything. But most guys that go through training have at least one thing they're really good at, and then there's something else that they definitely have to challenge and push themselves through.
What's going on through your mind? You made it to phase 2, which is like, wow, now you're having a lot of challenges here where, you might get kicked out. What's going on through your head, and what's the pressure that you're feeling to get to succeed at this and not fail, not get kicked out?
One of the things I've always been pretty good at, even today in my life, is not looking too far down the road. And this is a critical thing with buds. I think it's a critical thing in entrepreneurship. I mean, it's important to be aware and look further down the road at the challenges. But if you obsess over that stuff, and you're so obsessed over something that's beyond your control, and a lot of people unfortunately live their life this way, you stop focusing on the right here and now, which is really what you should be focusing. So in SEAL training, that's pretty much for me how it was. It was just like, okay, get done with this swim. Don't look further down the road. And the instructors told you that, don't, evolution to evolution, day to day. Don't look further down the road. You'll overwhelm yourself. You just focus on getting through the evolution, and that's the thing. And I mean, I failed pool comp. For those that don't know, it's probably the second hardest evolution in SEAL training. It's the culmination exercise for dive week, where you're learning how to do all your underwater emergency procedures. And you do it back when I went through, you did it with an old Jacques Cousteau type rig, old with the double hose. And they like those rigs because they could break them. They could tear them apart and break them underwater. And you could actually kind of put it back together if you knew what you were doing. And pool comp was the final exercise where on the last day of pool week, you would have two instructors that would swim down and attack you and literally kind of kick your ass on the bottom and slam you off the bottom and try and knock the wind out of you. And they'd rip all your gear off. And then you would have to methodically fix all your gear. You'd have to get your air running again. You would have to get your mask on. You would have to get all your straps adjusted, and there was a very methodical sequence. You had to go in sequence. If you missed a step or you did something out of turn, you failed. Obviously, if you went to the surface, you failed. So it was a very hard evolution. I don't know many guys that passed on the first try. You had 4 tries to pass, and I failed it 3 times. Me and my roommate. And I remember it was Friday afternoon, so we were done, and they said, okay, you guys are going to retest on Monday. And that was a long weekend. It was a long weekend. We stayed in him and I used to go out partying all the time, and we did not go out that weekend. We sat in our room, and we did breath holding drills all weekend. And I mean, the good news is by the time Monday came around, I felt, man, I was up to like 4 minutes holding my breath. So I was like, I feel pretty good about this. And sure enough, both he and I passed on Monday.